Welcome to Monkey Chatter. Monkey Chatter is a podcast by three great friends who have different perspectives on all things wellness. So let's jump right into today's topic. Welcome to Monkey Chatter. This is Lara with Michelle and Amy, and today's episode is about a book that was my suggested read for the month, I guess. This was actually a book my sister recommended to me. In fact, I think she may have even bought it for me. It is, I'm going to show it as well as tell it. It was called Good Stress. It's by an author by the name of Jeff Krasno, who it sounds like is co-written by his wife, Skylar Grant, who he speaks about quite highly, quite a lot in the book. To give you a little overview, I know this partly because I used to have a subscription to this thing, but Jeff Krasno is, I think, the CEO or the leader of this place called Commune. It's not a cult. It does sound kind of culty, but it's basically a platform. It's an online platform, and it is really cool. So a friend of mine signed me up as her guest to be like a free year, and it was during 2020, and I really enjoyed it. It has yoga, meditation, courses, all kinds of different teachers, authors, speakers, and you can listen to all things wellness. And so it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I didn't really listen to him ever. It was just all these other teachers. So I did enjoy that. But he is I guess is not really a writer, but he is the founder of this commune, and they also have a commune in Topanga, California, which he mentions in the book. His wife is a yogini, and does a lot of stuff with yoga, and apparently they've got daughters, and he's a dad, and so that's reflected in the book. There's a lot of really bad dad jokes, which he fully owns. But it's called the health benefits of doing hard things. And so I knew that would be right up our alley as a group to learn about, especially Amy, who likes to do hard things. I don't like to do hard things at all, but I also understand how they could benefit me.
It's funny that you say that. So I just have to chime in there.
I'm going to let Amy talk about doing hard things.
I said this to Michelle earlier today because we were talking a little bit about it. And I was like, I feel like it was false advertising. Because that is not hard. Like, there's nothing in there that I would call hard. Like, uncomfortable.
I disagree a little.
Yeah, I would say uncomfortable. Like, getting in a cold plunge is uncomfortable. Getting in a sauna for a half an hour is uncomfortable. Fasting, depending on how long you do it, is uncomfortable. But none of that is, I don't know. I was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be, because I don't call any of it hard.
I want you to talk more about that, because I am fascinated, because I would wholly categorize everything that you just mentioned: cold plunge, exercising or running a lot. What was the other thing? I would categorize those things as hard, but that's just the differences in our personality. And it's also probably what makes you do the things you do, because you just reframe it in a way that it doesn't feel hard to you, which is pretty cool.
Like, it's uncomfortable. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not like, yeah, let me go get in a cold plunge because this is going to be fun. But or take a cold shower or whatever. Like, it's uncomfortable, but hard? I don't know.
So, okay, so what would you classify as hard?
Interesting. Good Michelle.
Good job, Amy. Or Michelle, with a great question.
So I was thinking about this earlier, and I think it just, I think it came up today more so, just because one of the running podcasts I listen to, she just announced that she now has metastatic breast cancer, and she has a 5-year-old who just graduated from kindergarten, all this stuff. I'm like, that's hard. That's hard. Come on. Watching your parents die, watching your kids die, spouse, stuff like that. That's hard. Sitting in the ice for 30 seconds is not hard. I don't know.
I get that. I get that view. So it's more of a semantics where you're equating the word hard to what maybe some of us would consider like really heart-wrenching, tragic circumstances or situations.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you hear people say like doing hard things. And I also wanted to shout out because Amy did this amazing post where it was about choosing your hard.
Mm.
And I
Yeah,
loved
that
that
was good.
post. Maybe you can explain that, Amy, to
Oh,
everybody.
that was just when we were talking about, like, that's one of the things that one of the ultra runners, and that's something that we talk about again in ultra running a fair bit, is like, you get in that, like, yeah, people will look at that and, it's funny because we're coming up, like, last year at this time is when I did the 82 miles for my mom's birthday. Like,
That's hard.
it was,
That's
it,
hard.
I mean, but really in the grand scheme of things, like, yeah, I was beat up. Like, I still have the pictures of my feet on my phone. OnlyFans, don't be like reaching out. I'm not doing any of that. Isn't that where they do the feet pictures or something?
I think so,
I
but
don't even
I
know.
don't know. It's
Yes.
like,
But like,
you can make a
so
lot
I
of
still,
money.
yeah, I still have the pictures on my phone. Like, my feet were destroyed, like blisters. I was just a mess. So it was uncomfortable, but seriously, at any point in time, I had the option to bail out of that. I mean, if I really wanted to. So again, it was, yes, it was a hard physical feat, but no pun intended. But
Bad
like,
dad joke alert.
you have, I know, oh god, I spent too much time with the book, but like, you have the option to bail out. And I think about that too, like we're at the gym, you end up laying on the floor, kind of gasping for air, and you're like, whew, that was a hard workout. Like, yeah, it was uncomfortable for a while, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me.
Definition. I like that
It's just me.
definition. That hard is when you don't have the option to bail out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you
Hard
think
is when
about
you're
things like Gaza, Ukraine, like when you're living in those kinds of conditions and there's no way. Now that you're right, Amy. That kind of that's hard.
Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
fasting for 16 hours. Come on, people. You
Yeah.
know you're going to have food at the end. The
Yeah.
people who
Yeah.
are living and don't know where their next meal is coming from.
Yeah.
That's
That's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
well, and I want you to expound just a little bit more because this is your platform too. But the post that Amy, or I think it was a post, I don't know, it was something that you shared that was very much about how you can pick your hard. So pick your hard now while you can.
Oh, yeah.
That's what so like talk about that for just a second.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that's why I do some of the more physical stuff. Although I got to tell you, my mental toughness has been in the toilet lately. But yeah, I think you pick again, and I think this was the statement that I made when we were doing the interviews of each of us. But like, pick your hard because you don't always get to pick your hard.
That is true.
So
it was in our interviews, and I apologize.
Mhm.
I was thinking it was a social media post, which, by the way, it would be a great one for you to do if you haven't done it. But I think we took it out. We posted it as like, yeah.
And I think I did put that in like my little recap after the 82 miles last year. I think it might be in there, like the lessons learned from that is, pick your hard, so that that. And I think, and I actually did, this was one of the quotes that I did like from him, and I think I wrote it down, but it was something to the effect of like, when you do hard things, other hard things become easier, or something like something to that effect. And I do truly believe that, like, if you you choose to do hard things, then when the truly hard things come that you can't control, not that they become easy, but you have in the back of your head that you've gotten through other hard things so you can get through that. And it comes down to that whole, it's kind of a cheesy saying, but I like it. But basically you've gotten through 100% of the hard days like
that you've had so
far.
Yes, that's a great saying. I actually love that saying. But okay,
Anyways,
well, thank you.
About me. I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that, because I think it relates really well to the book. And maybe his title, Good Stress, is a great title, but the subtitle should have been The Health Benefits of Doing Uncomfortable Things.
Yeah. Or even like, even if he just I don't know. It was just funny because, like, when you sent the book, I was like, "Oh, this
This
looks
is right up your
awesome! I
alley,
can't
right? Yeah.
wait!"
Amy's like, yay, hard.
And then I started reading it, and I was like, oh, that's not hard. Oh, that's not hard." And then we like kept going, and I was like, "When are we getting to the hard part?" Like,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, like, so
Yeah.
he throws a lot. So we'll get back to the book, I guess.
yeah.
He throws a lot of stuff out for people to try, like almost too much. Like there is a point where you're like, okay, what are these things do I have to do first? I guess maybe
Yeah.
his point is just pick something and do it. But to give a little background, like according to the book, he grew up as a chubby kid. Felt very I don't know, like he wasn't enough, and he just the way he was was out of his control. He couldn't change who he was. Biologically, he was this fat kid who wasn't worth anything. And so that part I found really interesting, that as he became an adult and he realized how sick he was at some point because he was overweight, he was unhealthy, he was diabetic, he had a
Can I just
leaky
jump in
gut.
just real quick? Because I think sort of along the same lines as Amy talking about, like, it wasn't hard. One of the things because I could really relate to his story, about going down that path, but like knowing a little bit about diabetes and the numbers and all of that, he he had just tipped from, like, I mean, he was in a space where you really can make a difference. So I found that a little, like, I felt like he made that sound like, "Oh my god, I had this terrible health thing," but and yes, having been through it, like, I could really relate to that story. Like, I'm like, "Oh, that's almost identical to kinda how mine unfolded," and you're like, "Oh crap, how did that happen?" But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt like I was like, "Well, wait, you were at 126? Like, that is literally just the one number that tips you from prediabetes to like," and I was like, "Oh, that's not," like, I thought it was gonna be dramatic, like, he
Well,
had
and
this
according to
huge
him,
number,
yeah, like it sounds
Yeah,
dramatic.
and he
And
was
I
really
don't
yeah.
honestly know what those numbers are. I'm lucky because I don't have to know, right?
Yay,
So,
don't ever find out.
right. So that never occurred to
Yeah,
me. But
yeah.
what I did like notice, like with reading, was he was like in his early 40s, like he was
Yeah,
young.
and he had
And
time to and
yes, and he also
yeah,
had inflammation, like all kinds of inflammation in general, and like a hip replacement when he was like in
yeah,
his 40s, and
yeah,
stuff that you don't normally deal with until you're older. So
and
that was interesting.
I do wanna say that, I wish again, because I was so like, how stuff unraveled for me was really similar to how he was laying it out, and one of the things, now that I'm in my 60s, that I really would love to say to people who are in their 30s and 40s, like, that is, do make your changes and do your stuff then, and I know you feel like you can't, right? Like, because 'cause you're so busy with work and, like, that's the priority, and you don't feel too bad, Like, you're in your 40s, you kinda feel like you have it all, you might feel a little bad, but that truly, if you don't make those changes then, and you're right, Lara, like, he was in I sort of felt like, oh, his scenario, he was in such a sweet spot, right? And then he had access to all these resources,
Well,
and,
that's a big deal,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Well, also he had access to experts, but one
yes,
thing
yeah,
I found interesting was that he did realize that he had gotten himself there at a young age. It wasn't all just fate. Like that's what I found interesting about that part, was it was like he was only 40 and here he was, this mess basically, and with the body of somebody in their 60s potentially. And so you're right. One, he had resources and he had a lot of people like doctors and therapists and, but, and that's the hard part for a lot of people, is like, we don't all have those resources. And even if we know, like, okay, we should be getting in a sauna 3 times a week, we might not be able to afford to go to a place to get in a sauna. So this book was very much written for somebody who, in my opinion, had the means and the devotion and the interest in going all in. And I think that's his sweet spot audience. That's who he's writing for. The other thing is, if you did not go to college, and even if you did, you're going to have to look up some words in here.
Oh yeah, he's like a big word guy.
I had to look up so many words. And it wasn't that I couldn't figure it out by context. I did figure it out by context, but because I was like, damn it, I should know this word. What the hell does this mean? So that part, after a while, got a little bit on my nerves because I consider myself fairly smart. And then there were some words in there that I don't know that anybody would know unless you were specifically studying this kind of stuff. Like I marked one in here because it was a word I had never heard of, and I'm not even sure how to say it, but it's spelled exactly like exposome. It's exposome. I'm guessing it's pronounced exposome. And it's the term for the sum total of all the exposures in our lifetime from the womb to the tomb, including food, environment.
Comment.
Yeah. The writing style is easy to read, like, except for the big words. Like, it's kind of fun. There's some funny stuff as well. But it's food we eat, environmental toxins, heavy metals, air we breathe, water we drink, even our thoughts and our emotions, which we all know can affect us physically. So anyways, that part I thought was interesting, but that was just one of the words, and there were so many more. One that I didn't know, or like these like scientific things that I had never heard of. A lot of that. I did a lot of Google. I was like sitting in bed reading a lot of nights, and I would yell out to my Google assistant, and I'd be like, "Hey Google," and then I'd be, sorry, he just beeped. Never mind.
She's like, yes.
And I would ask all these questions like, what does it mean to da 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 da, or like, what does this mean about autoimmune disease and weight problems and chronic, poor Google. You can only imagine the ads I'm getting on my feed now. So anyways, let's suffice it to say, in a nutshell, I think we all got a little annoyed by his writing style. I mean, I will say, I wrote down the things that I feel like he was pushing, and I don't mean pushing like these are bad things. I just mean like, here's the things that he talks about in the book, and this is in order in the book. Intermittent fasting, deliberate cold therapy, deliberate heat therapy, resistance training, light therapy, mind training and the breath, building psychological immunity, which we can talk about, maybe Amy or Michelle can talk about that, social fitness, eating stressed plants. That one kind of whacked me out a little.
Yeah.
And rewilding, which is like forest bathing, which we have talked about on this podcast. So anyways, I kind of guess, like, when I read through the list, I was like, yeah, there's nothing like revolutionary here.
Right.
It's just a matter of, like, I personally think all these things are not necessarily, like you said, Amy, hard. It's just like, what combination works best for you? We all know we need to be eating better, right? And intermittent fasting doesn't work for everybody. It's different for everybody's bodies are different. And like the whole hot cold therapy, like I found a study that said cold therapy actually delays the building of muscles if you're muscle training or whatever. So there's some stuff in there. But like light therapy, breath work and meditation, that when he got to that stuff, I was in like seventh heaven. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all about all this stuff. Yoga, he talks about yoga. I really like the part about social fitness, which is like,
I like that too.
Yeah.
I thought that was
part.
one of my favorite. Yeah, the community part, but also like, and I marked this page. He coined a phrase I had not. Well, he didn't coin it. I don't think he came up with a word. Maybe I shouldn't say he came up with it. I don't even know how to say it. Yes.
Yeah.
He talked about being an ambivert. I'm like, oh my God, that's totally me.
Yeah. I think most people will cancel that. That's not true. I would say most of the people I know really fall in that space where, and yeah, so I really resonated with that section when he was talking about that. And, when his references to the blue zones, right, where it's really about community. And I thought there were some interesting points around, loneliness and social media, and how, when you're connecting the way we're connecting, that people get kind of tricked into thinking that's, you know, gonna work as like your social interaction. And I can't remember if it was in this book or something else I was reading at the same time.
Yellow face.
Yeah, that is a really good book. I'm like halfway through with that. Another book I'm reading that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But he was talking about, or whatever I was reading was talking about how it's not natural for us to look at our own faces. Was that this book?
Oh,
I can't. It must have been,
Like
'cause
all this
I've
time
just
on
been reading.
Zoom
Yeah,
has
'cause you're.
really like
Yeah,
our brain. Maybe
it
it was
must be
this book.
here because I
Yeah,
just read.
that and I
yeah.
was like, wow, that really makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we are not designed to look at ourselves and also to look at others like in a group. Like when you have a bunch of people in a group, like our
Like all at
brains
the same time.
are not wired to do that well. And I was like, that fascinated me. I'm like, oh, okay, I need to know more about that, because that makes sense to me,
Mhm.
Yeah, that was really fascinating. Those chapters were my favorites. Like the first half of the book, I struggled a little bit with. So like let's maybe go through each of like the main points and then we can all like discuss. So like the hot and cold therapy. So I love a sauna. I love an infrared sauna specifically. There is tons of great research extolling the benefits. He talks about sauna in general, and he says there isn't as much research on the infrared. There actually is quite a bit if you look, but he doesn't have an infrared, I guess, so he's using the traditional. It doesn't even matter which one, although there are some additional benefits to infrared that I've learned. But he kind of talks about it like it's not all about just the sweating and the uncomfortableness. I mean, there's other benefits. I kind of feel like he glosses over sometimes the research and the results. And he did that with cold therapy and talked more about like Wim Hof and like how this nobody really likes cold, but it's all these benefits. And I did like how he said like, okay, you don't have to go all in. You don't have to sit in an ice bucket. You can just like even temperatures under 60 are still considered beneficial. But I felt like the research lacked, especially on the cold side.
Mhm.
And then recently it came to my attention there has been a few studies done. Of course, they're on men, like most studies. And so the jury's out on cold therapy in women. I've heard that it actually creates an unhealthy stress for women because women have different physiology than men, and we actually react differently to cold than men do. And then I also found one that was actually about men who were trying to train and build muscle, and that the cold therapy after a workout actually deterred that from happening. So it was just kind of And then the whole thing about like he talked about his ancestor and he named him with his name backwards, which I'm guessing sounds like Fej. I don't know. It's FFEJ. And that was where I had a lot of issue because he makes blanket statements about things like, oh, in Fej's day, they didn't have dementia, they didn't have Alzheimer's, they didn't have autism. And in my book, I'm like, we're talking millions of years ago, or well, maybe not millions, hundreds of thousands of years ago, whatever it was. How do we even know? We don't know what diseases those people had. And they didn't live past 30.
Before that.
Yes. Those people didn't live past 30, so they never even got old enough to experience anything. So some of that I needed to gloss over for me to get through the book personally. So anyways. Yeah. Oh, and Jeff Fej, like that was because we're still on cold and hot. He was like, oh, he slept, it was cold at night and they had to have a fire, and during the day it was, 100 degrees. And I'm thinking, Okay, well, that's true. But then later in the book, they talk about turning your thermostat to 65 for the best sleep. And I'm like, well, that's not going in following nature. So there were too many contradictions for me personally.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take over.
Turn, Amy.
No,
You go.
I think like kind of my overarching thing, and this is where I have such a hard time with books like this. But like he puts, and we talked about this, I think a little bit. We were talking about the day that he puts at the end of the book, and he like kind of lists out everything. I'm like, dude, when are you going to the bathroom? When are you taking your kids to school? And when are you taking a shower? Like, it's just not. And in and of themselves, like each of the things that he talks about in there, whatever, like, it's fine. But I think it makes me crazy when people put books out like this with all this, like, and I feel like they have to get to like a magical number, like 10 things that you need to do. Because then I think, and Michelle, I think this is to your point maybe, and I don't want to speak for you, but then you get so overwhelmed, like people get so overwhelmed by like, oh, I need to do this, and they say I need to do this, and they say I need to do that, and then you just don't do any of it because you're like, well, screw it. Like, and the other thing that why I have a hard time with like books and influencers and all this stuff, and people kind of along these lines, like how many people in the US are not getting movement in, are not eating the recommended amounts of fruits and vegetables, aren't getting sleep, and aren't drinking water. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter what the research says one way or another on sauna or cold plunge or fasting or whatever. If you're not drinking water, moving, eating some fruits and vegetables, and getting some sleep, like, we got to address that stuff first. And so I think, and I probably make it too too simple, but it just makes me crazy because I feel like this stuff just makes people want to give up then, because they think if I can't, like, and I mean, yes, he mentions, like, hey, this is my ideal day, and yes, sometimes travel messes it up and yada yada whatever. But I feel like sometimes people read this and they feel like if they can't meet that gold standard that somebody's laid out on these pages, just like screw it. And that makes me crazy. Like, that's probably my biggest beef with the whole book. So, and not that there wasn't, I mean, yeah, there's some good stuff in it too, but it probably won't stay on my bookshelf and I probably won't read it again.
Well, and I think what you just said speaks perfectly to what we talked about earlier, which is that this book was not written for a novice wellness interest person. This is not for the wellness curious. This is not like your average, like, how do you get started? This was for, and it you wouldn't know that until you actually read it. But after reading it, I can honestly say, like, this was aimed at a very specific audience. And not everybody's going to fall into that category. Because like you said, Amy, if you're not even doing the basics, like you're not even eating healthily and moving your body and drinking water and getting sleep, which, I mean, those are like
and
4
even
really
those
basics.
Are overwhelming. Like,
and even those can be hard for a lot of people. A lot of people. Think of all the people that work multiple jobs and have kids and all the things, So yeah, this book was not written for those people. So if you are that person, do not read this book. Now, if you are a person who's like doing all the things and you're like, what is missing? Like, I just can't quite get there. Maybe do some hot and cold plunge. Maybe add that in one day. Maybe do some intermittent fasting. Do it for a month. See how you feel. But I feel like there's no one size fits all when it comes to wellness and well-being and health. Like, there just isn't. I do like that his basic outline was like, get light, get exercise, eat healthy, do a little bit of what he calls good stress stuff, which could be exercise, hot and cold, that kind of thing. He talks about nature. He talks about community and grounding, like all those things we've talked about and we all agree on. I like that part of it. Like, I'm going to give him credit where credit's due kind of thing, that those were good things. And, talking about the meditation and learning to find stillness within your own body, because again, that just makes it that much easier for you to deal with those psychological hard things when they come your way. So those were all really good. Those were all really good things.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, like, in and of themselves, there's no one thing in there that I'm like, "Ugh," like, but, yeah, I just think this is like the final, like, 1%, like, it's like, well, give this a shot and see, it's kind of like,
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Like, I'm
yeah,
not that your average person couldn't do a lot of these things,
right.
but doing them daily is a bit of a stretch. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. I have a sauna not at my house, but I have it at the salt cave. Trust me, I would love to get in there every day. Do I find the time? No, I don't. I'm lucky if I do it once or twice a week, and I would love to make it 3 times. Like, that's my ultimate goal. But like, the reality for most people is we just don't all have that kind of flexibility. So you do it when we can. Once a week is great. So yeah, I like that. And I did like some of his tips too on the social, which were like, instead of not answering the call and texting someone that you'll call them later, just pick it up and be like, hey, sorry, I can't talk. And, good to hear your voice. Can I call you later? Like, that doesn't really take any more time. So, I mean, that's a really good tip, I feel like, just to keep. So you hear somebody's voice, it's so much better than a text, right? And yet, look at us all. We're like, I'm not answering that call. You look at the phone ring, and you're like, I'm not
I
answering
don't have the
that.
time for that today.
How many times have we all done that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Okay,
interesting.
Michelle, your turn. I feel like Lara and I have like.
No, I'm just one of the things, and again, it's really hard because I have so many books going right now. It's hard for me to know, like, did this come from here? But I feel like he talked about listening to understand. Was that him?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so
that was in there.
I was just trying to use that now, listening to you guys instead of formulating like what I'm going to say next, which is what I do. But that really does leave you a little flat-footed when it's your turn.
Here, well, Kat is chiming in for you, I
Do
think.
you hear my cat?
Right?
It's actually Shadow this time. She's
Oh,
being talkative. Yeah, Cat's stuck
There's
outside.
Oh wait, somebody's always got to make a little appearance.
We always
We
have to have
like
an
that.
appearance from a pet of some
You
kind.
gotta have a little animal
It's
action.
good.
But I
Yes.
did like that, and it reminded me of a woman I met years ago named Barb Matthews. This is a long time ago, like a long time ago. And she was a little older than me and obviously was on her own sort of personal journey. And I remember I just really admired her. So we went to lunch one day, and I remember having lunch with her, and I was talking and she was listening, and then when I stopped, she didn't say anything. And like she really took this long pause, which of course I'm like, "Oh, this is really awkward," and feeling like I have to fill it with something. And she told me that she's like, "Oh, I'm," because I'm kind of like, what the heck? And she had said at that time, I'm really trying to learn to listen and then formulate my response. And I remember thinking, I was in my 20s, like I was pretty young. And I was like, that was such a foreign concept to me
Mm.
because, and I just remember being really struck by it and like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. Like, oh, like she is clearly way more evolved than, half the planet. And, but it was, that in and of itself is such a game changer when you interact with folks. So, all the other, sort of wellness tips aside, I found those like there were a few of those sort of sprinkled throughout that really struck me. And I was like, oh, that's something I should really do more of, right? Listen to understand. That was exactly how
Mm.
he phrased it.
I
Yeah.
did enjoy that too. And what did you think, Michelle, of the part where he talks about having difficult conversations?
Oh, I really loved that because that's kind of my jam, right? And I think he did cite the what is it, the nonviolent communication or something, and I have that
Mhm.
book and I've read that multiple times over the years, and
Did you bust it out this week?
I didn't. I'm looking for it right now. I'm like, where is it? Um,
And can you, for people who are listening that may not know what NVC or nonviolent communication is, can you tell them?
no. I can't do like a little summary of it other than sort of back to what we were talking about before, where you're listening to understand the other person, right? So you're coming at a conversation or a difficult conversation from a different space. Like you're not in a confrontational space. It's about understanding the other person and then figuring out how you sort of go somewhere together, right? As opposed to I win or you win,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a different energy to that. Yeah, now I'm gonna have to go get it out and
Yeah, we
find
learned a
it.
lot about that actually in yoga teacher training.
Mm,
And it's basically a way that you use your empathy and understanding of somebody's situation, and instead of judging them, you only focus on like the actual facts.
yep.
And
You
your
pull out the
goal,
emotion. Yep.
yes, and your goal is to find a solution and not make language that make them feel judged or blamed or
It's
so it's like
all solution,
non-judgmental.
right? It's all solution based as
Mhm.
opposed to sort of this one of us has to win based. I'm trying to think of what the phrase is. There's an actual phrase that goes with that um about the focus on solution, which of course I can't pull up. I should have
Do you
written
want
it
me to
down.
Google it?
Nah, it's all right. Don't worry. I mean, you can if you want.
Michelle's like, no, you should be paying attention to me
I
and
know. I won't Google
circling.
it. I won't
No,
Google
I'm
it.
kidding.
No
um,
Google.
but
You could ask Google.
I do
Oh
feel
yeah.
like ask Google. I do feel like that whole part of it really, I was like, regardless of how, because I listened to it, Amy and Lara read it, and let me tell you, I was really like done. Like I was like, how many more hours of this man do I have to listen to? Um, but those
I don't think he's sending
sections,
us any free books
yeah,
anytime
no,
soon.
it's
He
okay.
I
won't be a
don't think we'll be
sponsor of the
tagging him in
podcast.
the social media.
Well, there was a lot, there was a lot in there that was useful and good. And he sounds like an interesting guy and certainly has, met a lot of people and interacted with a lot of people. He must have a podcast, Lara, because he
Mhm.
I
talks about
believe
Sounds
he
like
has a
interviewing.
podcast, and I think it's called Commune, which is the same as his company.
it.
Well,
Yeah.
that might be, I'd be curious to hear what kind of an interviewer he is.
Mm.
Um,
See if
you
he
know,
applies the same principles he talks
mm,
about.
yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, there were a lot of good pieces in it, but um, I have to agree with Amy. Like I found it as somebody who's truly interested in trying to figure things out, and I found his descriptions of things like how insulin and glucose work. Some of that I found kind of helpful. Like some of it was a
Mhm.
little goofy, but when he talks about like the Uber, your glucose is hanging out waiting for the Uber or whatever, your insulin. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this is kind of a cool way to present this in, with language that people could sort of get. So I thought some of that was helpful because it's really hard to understand what's really going on in your body when all this, like cortisol and all of that. So I did find some of that somewhat helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought some of that was really good and very creative, like you said. Kind of like he created these little analogies that would be really easy to understand, by
for people
most
like
people.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then there were others of them where I'm like, oh my God, could you just stop already?
Yeah.
Like, We get it. Move on. It's all right.
There's a lot of that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that I
Yeah.
found difficult.
Yeah.
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 But overall, I
Um,
mean, I made it through the whole thing. I don't think I made it through the whole deep work, did I?
I didn't
So,
even get through the first chapter of Deep Work. I'm
okay.
sorry.
So I mean, there is that. Either I'm really trying to um I've been consciously, as of June 1st, really trying to focus more and not have my devices or any of that kind of stuff with me. And I've stopped using my earbuds because I think they were giving me vertigo.
Mm,
So without my earbuds, right, I can't, if Bill is up, I can't be listening to stuff. So I have to focus on one thing. And I'm reading like an actual book more. So, so that all was interesting too, like trying to narrow in focus again, like on one thing and not doing so many things. So, yeah, it was, I guess it was a good book to, I'm trying to make some changes as of June 1st, and so it was a good book to kind of have in there because there's lots of stuff in there that you could try,
yeah,
right? So I mean, lots of stuff you
Lots of
could try.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
that is true. Like I like to try stuff. Like I'm definitely about trying stuff. So let's all go around and say what we do, what we've tried, or what we do that's in this book. And I'm gonna go first because I hate cold. I have done exactly one cold plunge experience in my life, and I freaking hated every second of it. I'm not kidding. I freaking hated it. Like it was a little retreat space, and I went with my sister. It was in the woods. It was amazing, everything about it except for that part. And it wasn't even ice cold. It was like they had hot soak tubs, they had an infrared sauna, and then they had a cold tub, and you alternated in and out of. And then you got to put a face mask on, and we had hiked all day. And anyways, I mean, I stepped into that cold tub, and I was like, "Oh, I am not sitting down in this. If I make it up to my knees, no, I'm good. I'm not even doing it." So we're like, "You got to do it." We encouraged each other. And I mean, I sunk myself down in there for like maybe 3 or 4 seconds. And I was like, I cannot do this.
Getting
I
out.
know it's not that hard. It's way easier than a lot of other things. I just couldn't make myself stay in there. And so I got out and I'm like, yeah, it's not for me. But after I read the book, I decided to do the cold shower, hot shower alternating because my theory was, okay, I don't have to have really cold water. First of all, I can go down to like 60 and that's going to feel super cold to me. So I started doing that, and I have been doing it a few times a week. At the end of my shower, I run the cold water and I turn around in it, let it run on my hair, my face, my whole body until I get goosebumps. And then I turn the hot up again for like 5 seconds, and then I get out. So we'll see. I'm going to do it for a month and see how I feel. And I already do sauna. I love the sauna. And I do most of the other things except for, yeah, no, I think I do most of the other things. I guess the newest thing for me was the cold. So, and again, I don't believe it's always all that good for all women anyway. So I'm kind of on it. But I am going to do the cold shower thing for another few weeks and see if I notice anything different. That's my theory. See
Can I
if you
ask a
notice.
question? I want to ask a question. Maybe you know the answer to this. So he talks about the cold shower thing sort of more in relation to like starting your day. Are you a morning shower or a afternoon
I
or
am a morning shower. But it's not super early because it's not the first thing I do.
I'm wondering, like, if you take a shower in the evening or at night, are you supposed to? I mean, wouldn't that screw with your sleep?
So
Well, no,
I have
I am
actually
a bath person at night, like a hot bath, and then when you get out, your body temperature drops, and that's what helps you sleep.
That's what I was gonna say. I've actually seen some stuff, and again, I have not dug into the research, so know that this is just reading, but like that actually doing some cold before you get out of the shower at night can help because it will help bring your body temperature down, and then you sleep better. But I don't know. And
Okay.
again, I think it's probably different for different people too. So
I mean, there
like
definitely are
everything.
some physiological truths, and one of them is that, and he talks about this, your circadian rhythm, how I loved that part actually, and I should give more attention to that. There was a part he talked and explained about how like melatonin work with cortisol and some
yes,
other,
yeah.
that was super interesting because so many people struggle with sleep, and he had some excellent advice on that, I thought, with which, a lot of us, I catch myself doing it. Like instead of like the last thing I do before I go to bed should not be TV or phone. Like it should be quiet, or even reading with and I don't put my light real bright. I don't do blue light. It should be that. It's not always, but those I thought were really good tips. And the whole theory of like your body starts getting tired, like, and releases the melatonin, and your temperature does start dropping like naturally. It's really interesting. And that's what signifies your body needs sleep.
Sleep, yeah. I thought that was interesting.
Either that, or you're just up so late the night before that the next day your body's like, put me to bed already. Like I was up till midnight. Oh my God. Yeah, that's what it's like when you're old. When you hit midnight, you're like, that was late.
Midnight? What are you talking about?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock is like,
I'm done now.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning either. The fasting thing was interesting too. I am a natural intermittent faster. I've never tried to do it. It's just like you said, Michelle, I've never been a morning eater. I've never been a breakfast eater. And I fought that for most of my adult life because everybody was like, you have to have breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. I mean, it's what we were raised to think. And now I'm like, I'm just going to listen to my body. Hello. I'm not going to listen to everybody else. I'm going to listen to what my body is telling me. I think if more people just did that.
Michelle,
what have I done?
Have you tried any of the things on that list? I mean, I know the diet and all that, and the outdoors exercise.
Yeah. I definitely have not done a cold plunge. I am not a cold shower girl. Like one of my favorite things in life is a nice warm, like eating, sleeping, and taking showers are like my top 3. Like those are the things that make life worth living.
Pretty
right? Good food, a hot shower, and a nice cozy bed, like to conk out. So those are my things. Where I get massages, they just put in an infrared sauna, and she's like, you really need to try this. You really need to try this. Just come in 10 minutes before, blah, blah, blah. So I probably will do that. I want to add that in. There seems to be some good health benefits there. I think one of the things I've started to do very consciously is add in meditation into my day, at least 20 minutes. And my minimum is 20 minutes a day. And my stretch goal is 60 minutes broken up throughout the day. So I've really been trying to consciously do that. And thank you for sending me that thing, the Insight Timer challenge. That challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's been interesting. I've been trying to play catch up, so I did 4 of those.
I'm doing that too, but I'm not catching up. I'm just doing it on my own schedule. Yeah. It's a challenge. If for anybody who doesn't know, Insight Timer is a meditation app. It's free. Some of them, you either have to be a Plus member or whatever, but it's inexpensive. They do challenges from time to time, and they currently have a mid-year reset where it's literally, I think the longest one I've seen is 6 minutes.
Yeah, they're really short. Yeah. And they've been good so far. So that for sure. Intermittent fasting, I played around with that. Most of those things I've done something resembling that, right? Like over time, you just kind of, anytime you go to a retreat or anytime you do any of the personal wellness, personal development, any of that stuff, there's always some sort of activity that they've plucked from, something like this book and decided that should be part of their program. So, yeah. Amy?
Yeah, same thing. I've probably done all of it, but I mean, other than the fitness part, there's none of it that I have, at least from what I'm remembering, have like just kept up. Like I was in a pretty good habit of doing the sauna right after working out, just a regular sauna at the gym. And honestly, I was doing that more so just as a heat acclimation for running, because it gets so much harder to run. So I just go, I'd like work out and then go sit in the sauna for a little while afterwards. The cold plunge thing. So when you were talking about that, Lara, I had this vision. I've done a couple of the Tough Mudders. And so one of the things usually in those is like jumping in. It basically is like one of those big giant roll-off dumpsters with it's filled with ice water, but they have it set up so that there's boards and like barbed wire across the top. So it like you have to go under to get out of it.
Lord.
And there is literally a pitch, and like when I say under, like your whole head, like you have to go under. And there is a picture. Oh my gosh, if I could find it. There's a picture of me coming out of one of those. And I was definitely like not quite all together there. And like I'm kind of running sideways and my lips are a little blue.
Oh my gosh.
Because it was cold anyway. Like it was like the event was in October.
Oh, so it wasn't like you were even like hot.
So it was cold anyway, and then like you jump in there and it's just like so again, uncomfortable, but
survivable.
Yeah, survivable.
It's all survivable. Like that's you were so right, Amy. Like the word hard is so relative.
Yeah.
Speaking of hard, do y'all remember we all did this, the ice bucket challenge, when we were on a work thing? It was a work retreat, I guess. And they dumped. I thought you were there. It was.
I was not there.
Oh, I thought you both were. Maybe you left before we did that. You probably came in and did like the talks because it was in North Carolina at that really cool place.
Oh, I remember them talking about it, but
it's where one of our coworkers fell and like broke his leg or something. Yeah, we won't name names. And I know, Amy, you were there. Maybe Michelle wasn't. But you may have left. But we had to do this chat. It was for ALS at the time. It was a big thing. And everybody was filming it. And they went down the line of all of us sales reps. And they dumped a bucket of ice water over our head. And I just remember like almost in a panic. I was like, do I have to do this? Am I going to get fired? Like, I do not want to partake in this. I don't care what it's for.
I'll just send a check. It's okay.
I know. I'm like, can
I just send a check? I'll send money.
Yeah, honestly, probably of all the things that he talks about in there, if I was going to call any of them hard, it would be the meditation part. I'm like,
I knew
it. But
yeah. But, I wondered about that too. It's like say one person's hard is another person's easy too.
Yeah,
true. So true. Well, clearly, it's been hard for me because like it's the thing I know would probably have helped me the most because I'm in a perpetual cortisol bath most of my 40s and 50s, and it feels like it's maybe getting a little better. And that, every time, you go to the doctor or whatever, and they're like, well, if you could do some meditation in the morning or whatever. And I'd be like, sure, yeah, I'm all in. Like, I think it's a great idea. Love meditation, right? Like maybe I do it twice and then I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have time for that. So I think that would have made a really big difference if I had started and stuck with it in my 40s. Because, yeah, if anybody could have used it, it would have been me, right? Yeah, and it's clearly the cortisol thing is real.
Yeah, the correlation, and he talks about this too. And again, this is something he did a good job of, was explaining how chronic stress relates to inflammation.
Yep.
And it creates real illness in the body.
Yes, it does.
And we've talked about this before too. But if you don't know by now, if you're listening, chronic stress
it's not
will
good.
Create sickness in your body.
It will.
And
Yeah.
there are tons of research studies and books that support that. So
Yeah.
do whatever you can now. Start now. And it's not really ever too late, but the earlier you start, the better, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Just like Amy always says, it's never too late to start. And I
Never
agree.
too-
It's never too late to start.
Never
But
too
it's
soon.
never too early to
Never too
start.
soon, and it's never too late.
I always like to shout out to like my kiddos, and my son tore his shoulder ACL. I don't know, some big important thing. He has started cycling, which I love, and he's always been a kid that can stress pretty hard, and I feel like the cycling was really really good for him, and I was really afraid that he wasn't going to get back on the bike because it was a pretty serious accident. And I mean, it could have been worse, and he was wearing a helmet and all that. But he had to have surgery. It's pretty major. He's still going through PT, but he's back riding. In fact, we took a bike ride on Mother's Day together, and it was really fun. But, but I'm always encouraging my kids, like, do more for yourself. Like, I'm so glad the exercise is great. My daughter's great. She does yoga. But like, I always want to say, like, go get a massage, go get in the sauna, like, do some of these things. You guys are in your 20s, start now, and then it will become a must do. It won't feel like a luxury, or it won't feel like, like you have to earn those things. Do it now and let it become a habit, because it's really important as you get older.
Yeah. It's like saving, compound interest, right?
Exactly.
If you start early, it's harder to catch up when you get older, savings wise and health wise. So
I love that. That's a good analogy, Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well,
on that wise word of advice,
there we go.
Almost an hour about this book that we weren't that crazy about.
We did good.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody, but there's some interesting stuff in it.
Pick and choose. Go to the chapters that look interesting and ignore the rest of it. And he does say, I think, in the beginning of the book that you can, some people may want to just skip to the second half and not. So
yeah, he does.
That might not be a bad idea.
Yeah. Don't force yourself. I mean, it's not like you have to get on and do a podcast about the whole book or something.
Yeah, I felt a little forced because
me too. I'm like, oh, okay.
No pressure.
I don't want to be the only one who shows up and hasn't read it, All right,
thanks for indulging me. We'll have to do another book recap in the future on a different book.
Pick another one. Pick another topic.
Hey, anybody listening, if you have a recommendation for us, send it, because we've reviewed. I won't say review is a very strong word for what we're doing. We've discussed several books on here. Some of them stand out. Go ahead.
This is the first one that all three of us actually did read all the way through, wasn't
That's
it?
true. And also all three of us.
Sleep one. We did pretty good with the sleep one.
Sleep and breath. Didn't you all read breath too?
Oh,
yeah.
Breath we did.
Yeah. See, look, we did better than you think.
Yeah. We'll keep working on it.
We'll pick another one.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, take care of yourselves and do the hard things, because choose your, what is it, your thing? Pick your heart, as Amy says.
Yeah.
Pick your heart.
You don't always get to pick your heart.
You don't always get to. Yeah. And on that note.
Ready?
Okay.
One. Monkey chatter. Monkey chatter. Who you hang with matters. Woo! That one's a good one. Peace out.
It started off a little rough.
Thanks for listening to Monkey Chatter today. As a reminder, we want to let you know that while we think we are really smart, none of us are doctors or medical professionals. So anything that we say or suggest on this podcast should be run by your doctor before you make any major lifestyle, nutrition, or medication changes. Take care and be well, friends.